What's up, my people? Welcome back to Vertical Football. Welcome back to another episode of the Manchester United Fans Corner. I'm your host, Shegun. And guys, it's great to have you guys back with us. We have a lot of discussion today into this episode. And guys, so two major discussions really. First discussion is going to be about the promise I made to you guys in the last episode. That's the last 5 things we did, where I said we're going to analyze a particular profile of player that we need in our team, especially the position of the inside forwards, right? So we talked about the challenges that Rúben Amorim is currently facing, how that, he is asked to play in a certain way that is not necessarily used to, and how that sometimes to be able to achieve that, sometimes you need to introduce another profile of player into your squad, right? So we're going to discuss the challenges of Rúben Amorim in detail, and also the player we suggest we mold to fit in that role, right? So that's the first part of the discussion. Second part of the discussion is going to be about Kobbie Mainoo. I know a lot of discussions have been made about Kobbie Mainoo, but we've not done a lot on that because we just feel, we've said what we wanted to say in one of the episodes that we did in the past, but I don't think we've done justice to talking about the topic. So it's nice to also talk about him and to see what it is to do as a person, what Amorim needs to do as a manager, and then try to find the perfect solution for both parties. So guys, let's jump right into it. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is the fact that we've highlighted that Rúben Amorim is currently struggling. Actually, we've seen that for the past 3-4 games. And the reasons why he's struggling, we have explained that Rúben Amorim normally, his normal orientation as a winger, is the fact that he loves to move from outside to inside. So he likes to receive the ball close to the line, that's the sideline, and then move in attack to a defender, try to attack a defender, and then try to create chances, right? So that's his normal orientation. But we now see a situation whereby in our squad currently, what he's been asked to do is to play and tuck in as that inside forward, right? To tuck in as one of the 2 number 10s, right? Where he creates a lot of space for the likes of Amad Diallo to operate as a winger. And one of the things he's facing as a challenge is the fact that, in the hole, it's one of the most difficult places to play in football because it's a place where you don't get a lot more time on the ball. You don't get a lot more space on the ball, which a winger would like to have, having, overload, and then you play to the winger, and there's a lot of space to go 1v1 against the left back or the right back, But in this case, it's playing in the hole where the spaces are tighter, where the decision time are faster, is faster. He has to do a lot of things quickly. And he's struggling there because, he's not in a national position. And over time, I know he's going to get better there. But we also look at it that another way to solve that dilemma, another way to solve that situation is by bringing in or molding another player that can fit into exactly what we need in that hole, right? And so let me say this. In football, and when you are building your squad of 25 or 26 players, the wise way to build a squad of 25, 26 players is to have players in different positions that can offer you different things in different games and in different approaches, right? So what am I trying to say by this? In sense of, say for example, the striker position, you have Sesko, you have Zexi. They offer you 2 different things. And I think that's what makes a good squad. When you can't just say you want to be the squad and you're having the same profile in every position, like for like. No, it doesn't work because different games come with different challenges. Different games come with different opportunities. And you need to have players of different profiles to deal with the situations as they come. So, for example, there are certain games as a manager you look at and you're like, this game is a good game for Zexi, I might not be a good game for Sesko. You can say, okay, this game will be a good game for maybe Dogu, but might not be a good game for Dalo, right? So you, as a manager, you need to have different profiles in different positions. So this is why I'm saying that United needs to develop, because I don't think we have it here now, but the player I'm about to mention is a player that we can mold, because I see it in this game, he has those qualities. We need to have a player that is that is comfortable playing in the hole. Because Rúben Amorim, as I said earlier, is not comfortable in that hole. So we need to have a player that is comfortable playing in that hole. A player that, in my opinion, we've not had that profile for years. A player that can survive and do business in that hole comfortably. We've not had for years, especially since after Sir Alex Ferguson. We've not had for years, right? I think the closest we had was maybe a Juan Mata or a Shinji Kagawa, right? And those guys also, when you look at their game, you'll be like, you know, I think Mata was much more efficient, but most times we didn't necessarily use him in that situation. Most times. Sometimes it's here to do from the wings in. So, but I feel now we need to consciously build, because this player I want to mention, that's Shea Lacey, we need to build him to be able to operate in that hole and to operate comfortably. So let's talk about Shea Lacey. I believe he's a player that's going to help us. Now, there is only one position that I believe Shea Lacey can play for Manchester United. That's based on his game currently. And that position, obviously, is the right inside forward, right? Under this setup. The right inside forward. And so there are certain things he needs to be able to do in the right inside forward, because as I said earlier, when you play for the right inside forward for Man United, yes, there's the option of going to the wings, but for most part, because of the effectiveness of Diallo on that right wing, in terms of even his attacking prowess on that right wing, you will be asked to tuck in. So the first thing for Shea Lacey is that Shea Lacey needs to be able to survive in that hole. He needs to be able to do business in that hole. Now, let's look at certain things about Shea Lacey and about the academy. First of all, before we go into details about his profile. First thing about academy players, I am somebody, and people that know me, I'm someone that is always very careful about how we introduce academy players. I am not the kind of person that you will see that will come and start hyping academy players. Not that I don't believe in their potential, but I believe the best way to deal with academy players is not to hype them. This is my own belief. Because I understand that you can watch an academy game and you can see the dazzling, the playing, and you can see the potential. But all that remains is still potential. And I believe the best way to achieve and fulfill that potential is to give them the least publicity at all. Let them come into the first team. Let them blend into the first team. Let them do their business. Don't give them, especially in Manchester United, don't give them that too much spotlight. Not because they will misbehave, but because of the pressure at United. And for me, I've always believed that, and I said it even before Rúben Amorim came, if you can watch our previous episodes that we did before Amorim came, I've always believed that United for the past 10 years after Sir Alex Ferguson has not introduced academy players the right way. We've not done it the right way. And that's why I say that we keep producing academy players. I think in England, we are one of the teams that have done a good job at producing one academy player as we go on. There's no manager since after, except for maybe, except for maybe, even Moyes did, right? There's no manager after Sir Alex Ferguson that has not produced one academy player from the academy. Everybody has one player that they bring from the academy to the first team. And that player has this massive talent. Let's go through it. First person, let's say Moyes, Zanujaj, if you remember. Van Gaal, right? It was Rashford, right? Rashford was there. You can also maybe say Lingard also was there. Mourinho was McTominay, right? Ole was Greenwood. Ten Hag was Kobbie Mainoo. So everybody brings in at least one good, talented prospect. These players are not bad players, but the fact is, we've never truly integrated them the right way. And what do I mean by this? Sometimes the integration we do is that when we bring these players from the academy, we put so much pressure on them. When you look at the players I mentioned, when they come for the academy, immediately the pressure of score for us, be a main man in our team, is dumped on them. That's not the way to integrate academy players. That is not the way. I know that there are exceptions, right? You can hear some people will say, what are the likes of Yamal? There are exceptions, right? But because there are exceptions does not negate the rule. And the rule is that academic players normally should be brought in gradually into the team so that they can assimilate, get comfortable, and gradually get opportunities before they become stars. That's the right way to do it. But because United is a dysfunctional team, and has been for years, we're a dysfunctional club and has been for years, and we are always a club that always looks to the academy to provide saviors. It's not a good strategy to look to academy to provide saviors. That's when I hear people say, let's bring Shea Lacey. Shea Lacey is not meant to be a savior, and it's going to be a very, very poor mindset again to go through that route. So that's the first point I want to make on Shea Lacey. This guy must be allowed to integrate perfectly to this team because we've not done it well. No matter how talented the player is, right? In United, other clubs might work, but at Manchester United, where the pressure is crazy, he must be allowed to integrate in well. I will talk about the pressure as we go on, because United is not just about how talented you are. You must also be able to handle criticism, right? For example, Lammers has not done 6 months to United. I saw some people already criticizing Lammers, and I'm like, what exactly do you want to criticize about his game? Yes, I'm not saying he's playing perfect performances or putting up perfect performances, but the fact is that he has, in my opinion, 80% or 85% positive. And when a player has that positive in his first few months, you don't come out to criticize. But it's Manchester United. Criticism and Manchester United are twins. And that's why you bring a young boy, put the pressure on or criticism on a young boy, it will not last. And as we have seen, those guys, we are there now. We are there now. Many of them, the way they left, it's even shameful. So let's talk more. Let's talk more about Shea Lacey. So first, another thing I want to say about Shea Lacey is the fact that we need to understand this, that the intensity, the speed, the dynamics of academy football is different from men's football. We need to understand this. And I think people, because when I see some people, the way they prop up academy players, people like, I get there's a potential there, but the Premier League is a different ball game. And I'm not saying the player cannot perform in the Premier League, but I'm like, don't put too much expectations on academy boys. That's just my own major point. So let them breathe. Let them breathe. Let them have space to assimilate and get used to the team. So it's very, very important to say. So when we're talking about Shea Lacey, don't be shocked that when he joins, you might see some things about his game like, he needs to improve this, he needs to improve his speed on the ball, the things he does, let's do it quicker and everything. You will still see that because academic football is of different intensity, than Premier League football, obviously. Now let's talk about his game. Let's look into his game really. Now, first thing about Shea Lacey's game is the fact that as every Man United academy that plays in the wing, we have wingers. We don't have guys that are mostly suitable to inside forward, right? So when you look at Shea Lacey, you see that for his part of his game, he also loves to receive the ball out wide, in the maximum width, and then receive and then attack 1v1 with the left back of the opponent. But you also see that despite him doing that, you also see that his ability to also enter into the hole, right? To move into the space and drive into the hole is also there. And when I look at that, I like the way he does it, very comfortable. I've not seen Diallo do it that way. Especially like Manchester United, I've not seen him do it that way because maybe he has been actually just play out wide, which is very, very good at. I've not seen Mbeumo do it that way. So for me, I'm like, this guy is still a young boy. If he has this quality of moving into space, right? Why don't I mold him? If I was manager, why don't I mold him to also be able to be comfortable playing in that hole? Yes, not that he will not be able to play out wide, but also be very, very comfortable playing in that hole. So I feel we can build him to play in that hole. We can really build him to play in that hole. Shea Lacey needs to, because to play in that hole, there are certain areas of Shea Lacey's game that he needs to work on. Because the hole, as I said, is one of the most difficult places to play in football. The time, you have to be very fast. So that's one thing he needs to improve. In terms of, when I see his game currently, he tries to do a lot of dribbling. It's not bad. But if you are to play in the hole, you must know when to dribble, you must know when to pass the ball. And mostly, your game will be dependent on releasing the ball quickly. Because in the Premier League, you can say you want to dribble. Not everybody is a Messi, right? So the moment you say you want to dribble, you dispossess and you put your team at a risk, right? So he needs to develop his game in such a way where he is quick with his passes. And not just quick with his passes, he's quick with the variation of his passes. So in a sense that he's in the hole, he can know when to do quick 1-2s, right? Know when to do true passes, right? Know when to pass it to the wing backs, right? Know when to understand where the striker is. He needs to understand this. Know when to understand, okay, if I'm going to operate at the edge of the boxes, How will I put a cross in? So there are a lot of things you need to understand because I believe he can do that job in the whole, right? And also understand the fact of how to marood in front of the box 18. So you need to understand that. And while understanding that, you can't do that job without having stamina because you understand that in that inside forward role, you'll be dealing with a lot of specific kind of opponents. If you watch Mbeumo, you understand what I'm trying to say. In the sense of when you are the inside forward for Man United, you are not dealing with the right back of a four-man defense, right? Especially when you are playing inside, you're not dealing with the right back. You are dealing with the center forwards and the center defenders, right? That's why it's sometimes if we look at this season when Mbeumo pushes, is followed by a CB most times, right? Depending on the setup of the opponent, but most times it's followed by a CB. If it's a four-man defense, if it's a five-man defense opponent, it's followed by a CB. And so if Lacey is to play in that position, he needs to have stamina because they will try to bully him off the ball, right? And he needs to also have stamina, but also be quick with his decisions, be smart with his decisions. Don't allow them to press you because they will try to do that. Don't allow them to come and bully you off the ball. You have to be quick to pass, move, and make it difficult. So it's a position where forget your skills. They might be needed in some instances. Forget even your ability of saying, I'm going to hold off, right? It's a position where you need to have this thing working and have your brain working with the right amount of speed and with the right amount of acceleration because it's the Premier League, right? Now, I also love, the fact I also love about, I'm trying to just talk about his game in general. The fact I also love about him is his ability to use his right foot. I feel what I've seen about him so far, I feel he uses his right feet even more than Diallo. Uses his right feet more than what I've seen Mbeumo use in Manchester United, right? So it's something that I also want to encourage because in that hole, or even in the wing, depending on games, depending on the opponents, we want to stretch them out and the tactics for that game, which he can also do. It's someone that can take it to the byline and also use his right to cut back because this team is a team, as I've said many times, is a team that lacks cutbacks. We've not done a lot of cutbacks in United and we need to do more. So I like the fact that he uses his right, but he must use it more. He must train it more, right? He must have it in his mind that sometimes I can push. Sometimes it might even be not the wing, might even be in the minimum width, push into that inside space and use your right to cut back to a striker. It's a way of creating chances and goals for the team. So I feel that he needs to operate and work on these qualities or these characteristics that I've mentioned in order to be able for him to be able to play perfectly in that inside forward role. So it's a player that when I watch, I see the potential, but I also understand that there's still much work to be done. Don't be deceived to think, oh, he's going to come in and just pew. And I feel even if he comes in, the first game he comes in and he dribbles everybody, and the manager must not also be carried away. We don't want an academy savior currently. We want to give them time to stabilize, assimilate, right? And become a major stay in this team. We have had a lot of academy saviors that has not worked for this club, right? So also, his defensive work rate is something that we also have to look at. The defensive work rate is not really there, even though I know and I've seen his actions in terms of his pressing. I like that, and I think it's something that he needs to be coached more. His pressing, that aggressiveness in press is really good because he's a player that also has decent speed. So he's someone that presses well. I like that about him. But also his defensive work in the defensive setup needs to improve, right? Needs to improve because this is the Premier League. Everybody defends with 11 and you attack with 11. So you also need to defend with 11, right? So, but he's a player that I'm really, really pleased with. And I feel he's a player that we just need to mold because we've not had that profile, as I said earlier. We've not had that profile since after Alex Ferguson or somebody that can operate in the whole perfectly. And this guy, if he does it, will give us a different dynamics in our play. I even want us to, if I was to be the coach of Shea Lacey, I'll work on him on that ability to play and be comfortable and to be dangerous in that hole, right? In that hole. So I think he's a player, and I'm happy that about Amorim says anything about it ready, but also understand that you have to introduce him at the right time and be very careful how you introduce him. And funny enough, the other clubs that have talented boys, and they're careful how they introduce them. Estaval, my next guy is careful of how he introduces Estaval, right? He's specific about where he wants how he wants Estaval to play. We have Rio in Liverpool, which I know challenges and everything, but they're also very careful about how they use Rio. We have one area that's been in Arsenal for years, and they're also very careful, even though I know Ateta has not really shown sign about wanting to use that boy much, but they're also very careful about how they introduce him. Maybe they're very careful with that for Arsenal, but the fact is, there's a right way to introduce academy players. You don't need academy players to become saviors. But I know that yes, there are exceptions, but exception is not the rule. So guys, this is what I have about Shea Lacey. I'm really impressed about the talent, but I think we have said these things about him, and I think we have to be very careful of how we introduce him so that he can be a lasting stay. Now, the other academy player, Kobbie Mainoo. First and foremost, I'm not happy about, and I think everybody's not happy about the fact how that Kobbie Mainoo doesn't get to play for United. And I feel sometimes when I look at the Kobbie Mainoo situation, I'm not blaming Kobbie Mainoo, even though I know there are certain things he needs to improve in his game. I'm not also going to be blaming Amorim, even though I know that there are certain things that Amorim needs to tweak, right? In terms of profiles to try out in certain positions now, not even the midfield, certain positions to accommodate Kobbie Mainoo, which I'll talk about. My focus is always going to be about United as a whole. We've had players that they are not bad players, but sometimes they are players that are victims of our lack of a clear strategy and identity. If you're being honest, this guy was brought in by a different manager to the first team, playing a different style of football, right? When you see Kobbie Mainoo, you understand the kind of football that Kobbie Mainoo and system that Kobbie Mainoo should be playing. Naturally, this guy is made for a three-man midfield. Naturally, Kobbie Mainoo is made for a possession-based side. A side that is comfortable on the ball and passes the ball and dominates a high-volume passing team. A team that doesn't lose the ball so much and now have to be running back on defensive transition every time. You can see that. And when you now see that kind of player is not coming to play under a manager or asked to play now under a manager that is playing a 3-4-2-1 formation where it's just 2 CMs, and where those 2 CMs are not just going to be good on the ball, but they're also players that also have to be very, very good in the verticality of their play in terms of forward and backward. And like, this is a player that his game normally is not meant to be doing all this forward and backward. It's just meant to have control. And when you're having a team where it's a duty for the two midfielders to be very high volume in certain moments to push, you're like, oh, I see where he struggles. And for me, I'm not going to tell you, as much as I'm not happy that Kobbie Mainoo is not playing, I'm not also going to be telling you that he should be playing because it's perfect. The fact is, the system and Kobbie Mainoo are like this, if you are being honest. I've analyzed it. And in my analysis, I'm like, this is a talent you don't want to lose. So at this stage of United, it might not be the one to play that CM. But can we find a solution where we keep giving him game time as our team develops to a certain time where we are controlling the game now? So whether he plays in a 2 midfield or when we are controlling the game, it can be better. Or is there any tweak we need to do in terms of the profiles behind the midfield that can allow Kobbie Mainoo to play better? Is it also a function of changing the partner using? So you have to think about different ways. But for me, the major point is the system and Kobbie Mainoo. He's not a player meant for that system currently. He has to improve on certain things in his game. So let's not go into what he needs to improve. First and foremost, the areas he doesn't fit, which I believe he needs to improve. Let me first talk about the areas Kobbie Mainoo needs to improve before I go to the areas Amorim needs to improve that situation. First and foremost is the intensity of Kobbie Mainoo's game. I said it earlier. Kobbie Mainoo is not a player meant for this high volume, No. The guy's game is a game of control. It's a game where we have the ball, we pass the ball, we move the ball. That's his game. That's where he survives. And maybe at certain moments, you just do little pushing. But this formation we are using, it's a formation that needs high volume, right? And no one is right, no one is wrong. It's just that this is the way it is. It's not that the formation is wrong. It's not that the player is wrong, but it's just that this is the way it is. So the intensity of his game in terms of how high energy is he, how pushing, how proactive is he in every moment? It differs, right? Other thing is the tempo. Not just the tempo of his play in general, not just that tempo of his play in general, but the tempo of his drive, right? He's moving with the ball, right? His ability to also what? To move back also, that verticality to move back, right? Also is lacking. Also, the tempo of his pass. Even the last game showed it. Sometimes, and I've said it many times, that there are two ways to survive in the midfield of Rúben Amorim in this 3-4-2-1 formation. In the sense of, if you don't even have the high energy to push like other midfielders, sometimes you can replace that with the tempo of your passes. There are ways a player will pass the ball that speed up the game. But the way Kobbie Mainoo passes is like, let's just control. So I think you need to improve on, either he improves on his push or improves on the speed of his passes, the tempo of his passes. And I think the mileage covered. Because I said it, the midfielders they are athletic beasts. Those two midfielders, they need to be athletic beasts to push. And that's why when I did the episode, I talked about the fact that Anderson and Baleba, if I was the one to sign, I would sign those two of them. You need to have players that are athletic beasts, can be very, very effective both in defensive and attacking side of things. And so Kobbie needs to find a way to improve on his mileage. It's not easy. Sometimes the best way to go about football is to buy players that are perfect for your system. And one of the worst things for a manager or for a owner of a club is when you bring a manager in that has a clear defined idea and one of your best talents doesn't fit in there. I know people will say the best talent should fit in every system. There is truth, but most times it's not always the truth. And I think football has shown that, right? That sometimes the best talents or the best players don't necessarily fit into the system of the manager. And there are also situations where the manager has to find a way to incorporate the best player into the system, right? Now, that brings me to Rúben Amorim. Rúben Amorim has to find a way. And I feel, if I was to be Rúben Amorim, the way I will integrate Kobbie Mainoo is not as one of the two CMs. I will integrate Kobbie Mainoo as one of the inside forwards. And funny enough, last season, there was a period where Kobbie Mainoo was available, where he played as one of the two inside forwards. And I love what I saw. It was dangerous there. I love what I saw. So I'm looking at it that he offers us something different when he plays as one of the two inside forwards, right? Especially on the left-hand side. He offers us something different in terms of he can help the midfield. He can be that person that will move into the midfield and roam, right? He's also that person that is very, very dangerous, in the front of the box, which we saw even last season in those games he played. Was very, very dangerous in the box. He's someone that can give us control, right? In that area. Comfort in that area. He's someone that can be very, very good in the tight spaces in that area, right? He's someone that can also give us a different way of attacking in that area, dynamics in that area. So I feel sometimes it's not just about playing in CM, because in this place we are, it's difficult to see him play CM. Maybe against some opponents, but I feel it would be very, very good if he gets to play. I know Mount plays there, but the fact is Mount can play the other side. Mount can even play as a false nine. Let's spice it up. And I think Kobbie Mainoo will be very good playing at that left inside forward because he offers us something different. He offers us something different. And I would like to see him play in that position. And I feel that position will not really expose the need for this unnecessary verticality, that sometimes we have because we lose the ball too much. And for him, he will struggle having to go back every time. That's not his game. So I feel Amorim needs to work on that in terms of using, to me, if I was to be the one, I'll say, guy, I understand the fact you're a CM, but you need games, you need minutes, right? I'll play you as a left inside forward in certain games and play. And maybe sometimes when you start at the left inside forward, when I want to now make a change, I cannot take you to the midfield when we were 2-0 up, 3-0 up, and just to control the game. I feel that will be the way forward. So let's talk about also another part of Kobbie Mainoo's thing is the fact that I feel his countenance needs to improve. And I understand if people will say, oh, why did his countenance improve? Don't you know that he's not playing? I understand the fact, but see, one game can change this whole thing. Right? And that's one thing about what I was saying in football. Sometimes you're not getting games, you're not getting minutes, you're frustrated as a player. That's understandable. But sometimes when you're given 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Be present, right? Take your chances, right? Be aggressive. And sometimes I feel it's just like, they say I should come and play. Let me just come and play. And sometimes you will not even give the fans a reason, you know, to clamor for you to play more. Because the clamoring that the fans are doing for Kobbie Mainoo currently is not because of what he has done this season. It's about what we've seen him do in other systems, right? And so I feel he needs to, if it's just about pressing, it's about aggressiveness, it's about quick passes, show us something that will make us clamor the more. Because if you are clamoring now, oh, we want Kobbie Mainoo to play, the fact is, yes, he has not had minutes. And maybe that's also a reason why he has not showed that aggressiveness, but he needs to be present. 5 minutes, show that aggressiveness. 10 minutes, show that aggressiveness. And I think before you keep doing that, you know, you are showing to the whole world at least, even though the manager may or may not see that as okay, but you're showing to the whole world that you can actually play in this team. You can actually be effective. Be present. Don't have this defeated kind of, let me just leave. Sometimes just show what you're capable of. Because I believe the guy wants to keep playing for Manchester United. I believe he loves Manchester United. And I believe it's just a mismatch of system and player. But also, we can also find a way, which I've said. Let's use other positions, like left and side forward, to get him integrated into the team. So guys, these are my opinions on the two players I've analyzed. Shea Lacey and Kobbie Mainoo. So guys, let's have your opinion on the two players. What do you think about them? Is there anything I said you don't agree with? Is there anything I said you agree with? Let's just have that discussion in the comment section as usual. Thank you for always sticking with us. Thank you for your love, your comments, your nice words. It was great having a nice time with you today, and we will still have more. I promise you more. So don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, and most importantly, don't forget to share. Until I see you next time. Bye.